Lucy, you go in the middle of the transit, it over there, which I was right this far to do this with.
Well, it's always great when I'm able to welcome the Prime Minister of Australia to the Central Coast, and this afternoon has been a really exciting opportunity. I'd like to welcome the Prime Minister, I'd like to welcome the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction. I'd particularly like to thank Star Scientific for hosting us here today, to acknowledge the Chairman, Andrew Horvath, but also to acknowledge the incredible work that a business based here on the Central Coast is doing in such an emerging industry such as hydrogen. This is really exciting technology. We are seeing investment like there's no tomorrow in an organisation like this. And one of the exciting things that I heard today was that this company is growing from 25 employees to close to another 200 employees by the end of the year. This is an exciting news day for the Central Coast in terms of an announcement from the federal government. But what I'm really excited to see is that it's organisations and businesses here on the Central Coast that are really driving the innovation that is going to help us to deliver cleaner energy sources, more reliable, affordable energy, and also making sure that we do continue to drive economic growth in terms of jobs here on the Central Coast, as well as, of course, ensuring that we do have a better environment tomorrow than what we have today. So this is exciting. It is wonderful to have the Prime Minister and the Minister for Energy and Emissions Reduction here today, and I'll invite the Prime Minister to make the formal announcement.
Well, thank you very much, Lucy. It's good to be here with Angus and you, Andrew, and all of your team here. It was great to meet you. Lucy, I know you must be very excited to see what's happening here on the Central Coast. It's great to be here on the Central Coast. We are seeing people commuting to the Central Coast for the jobs that are being created in these wonderful businesses and these innovative businesses that are actually pioneering where energy is going into the future. You know, Australia has always played a huge role in meeting the energy needs of our region. That's what Australia's economy has been known for a very, very long time. And we're committed to ensuring that Australia continues to be doing that into the future. The world is moving to a new energy economy, a net zero economy, when it comes to energy. And Australia will play a huge part in that. And the way we are going to play a huge part of that is ensuring that we are backing in the best scientists, the best entrepreneurs, the best pioneers, and those who are doing that in our heaviest industries. See, there's a myth out there which says that you can't use the sorts of things that are being done in a business like this to power major industry. See, this is the exciting challenge that we have in Australia, that we get to solve for the net zero energy future what that means for heavy industry, for manufacturing, for what's going to spin those massive turbines, for what's going to power those enormous resource trucks up in the Pilbara or in other places, what's going to fire up the recycling glass plants around the country, what's going to protect and support the jobs in Gladstone to Bell Bay to over to the Pilbara, up here in the Central Coast and the Hunter. All of those jobs are going to be supported, and they're going to grow even more in the new energy economy because of the investments and because of the science and the technology, the energy technology that is being delivered right here in Australia. And it's our government's plan to ensure that we're meeting that challenge through technology, not taxes. We're not going to tax our way into the new energy economy. We're going to ensure that we achieve it through our investments, our smart investments in the energy technology that will power up Australian industry well into the future. And a huge part of that has been the technology roadmap, which Angus Taylor has been leading, supported by Australia's best scientists, people like Alan Finkel, who used to be our chief scientist, and others, and Alan is now continually involved in this project going forward. There are two elements of this energy technology that are so essential for Australia's future. One is the development of hydrogen. I want Australia and hydrogen technology to be synonymous around the world. And it's a key point I'll be making at the Climate Summit over the next few days, that Australia is really putting the flag right out there when it comes to ensuring that we lead the world in hydrogen technology. The hydrogen that can fire up furnaces that were used to be done by other forms of fossil fuels, that can run those trucks, that can run long-distance transport and do all of the things we needed to do, solving for these problems. So today we're announcing $275 million, thereabouts, in additional investment in 4 new hubs, for hydrogen hubs. Now, Angus will tell you a bit more about how that works, but what it basically is bringing together in particular parts of the country where there's the ability to generate the hydrogen, to use the hydrogen, to innovate around the hydrogen, and you create. And hydrogen, it's zero emissions gas. That's what it is. Hydrogen is zero emissions gas, and ensuring that in those ecosystems, as you might call them, those communities, if you like, those industrial communities, whether it's in Gladstone or whether it's, say, in the Hunter or other places, that's what this does. It's creating that. You wonder how Silicon Valley started. Well, it started by creating a community of people who are innovating in technology and using technology and changing the world. That's what these hubs are. And we're investing in creating more of them after the investments we made in the last budget. Now, the other announcement we're making today is some $267 million in carbon capture, use and storage. In a net zero future, there will still be carbon emissions that come from particular industries. Planes will still fly. I don't know anyone yet who's going to get on a plane that has not been flown with fuel. And so there will be emissions in the future, and there will be in 2050. And carbon capture, use and storage is essential to ensure that that can be accommodated. Up there in the Gorgon project, Angus can talk more about that, but that is one of the world's largest sites for carbon capture, use and storage. Some 4 million tonnes, I think it is, already. A real project actually happening. And so Australia has to pioneer both of these technologies and be right out there in front. That's how you get there. That's how we achieve what we're all trying to achieve. A lower emissions future, sure, but not at the price of taxing our heavy industries off the planet. Not at the price of taking away the jobs that I've seen right here. You know, in this very plant, what we're seeing is people bringing all sorts of skills together. People who make things, people who research things, people who administer things, all making this happen in this amazingly innovative business with some of the most amazing innovative technology that is going to make a big difference. So I'm very proud, Andrew, of what you're achieving here. And our plan through the technology roadmap is to ensure that we get there through technology, not taxes. And I'll allow Angus to fill you in more.
Thanks, PM. It's great to be with you here, Lucy, on the Central Coast with the Prime Minister and with Andrew and his team of world beaters, because that's what this organisation is. And like so many across Australia, we have world beaters in energy technology, and we always have had. We always have had. We've built some of the greatest energy supply chains and industries, exports in the world, and we will continue to do that, exactly as we're seeing here today. Now, the face of bringing down emissions and delivering affordable, reliable energy in Australia and around the world is what we see here today. It's entrepreneurs, it's innovators, it's not tax collectors. And this is the key. It's not about imposing taxes. It's not about eliminating industries. It's about creating jobs, and it's about harnessing the smarts, the capability and the skills of Australians right across this great country. In the Technology Investment Roadmap, we committed to 5 priority technologies, and they include technologies where Australia has the potential or is already a world beater, whether it's soil carbon or indeed in aluminium and steel, low emissions aluminium and steel stored energy, but 2 in particular that we're focused on today, investing $539 million in total, of course, are hydrogen and carbon capture and storage. And as the Prime Minister has said, hydrogen is a fuel that already is used today but has enormous potential in bringing down emissions and delivering that affordable, reliable energy we need. And not just energy for production of electricity, where it will play a huge role, as we've seen here today, but also in production of heat and as an industrial feedstock for critical products like fertiliser that puts food on our tables every day. Low-cost, clean hydrogen is where Australia has the potential to be a world leader in energy, just as we have been and continue to be in LNG, in coal, in other crucial resource industries. That's where our future lies, alongside those fantastic industries that we've built over such a long period of time. This commitment will focus in particular on creating hydrogen hubs and carbon capture and storage hubs. And hubs are a collection of businesses that work with each other to bring down the costs, make those industries efficient, build those supply chains across the world, and most importantly, create jobs and drive investment. Whether it's in hydrogen hubs that collect together manufacturers using the energy from the hydrogen and the feedstock from the hydrogen, producers of the hydrogen and producers of the heat from the hydrogen. Those collections of businesses are how we will build hubs and build competitive advantage in this industry as not only a user in Australia of hydrogen, but also as an exporter of hydrogen and related products to the world. And carbon capture and storage, as the Prime Minister has said, enormous opportunity for Australia. We have the biggest project in the world right here in Australia, 60 projects going across the world, but we are a world leader. And across all of these technologies, we're a world leader, which gives us a privileged position, not just to bring down our own emissions, but to help bring down emissions across our region and across the world. Australia has a special role to play in this, and in doing that we will create jobs and opportunities for great people like we see in this business here today. Thanks.
I'm very, very proud to have the Prime Minister, the Minister and Lucy Wicks here today with us. On behalf of myself and my team, it's been a pleasure to show them the next innovation in hydrogen. The HERO system produces a great deal of heat, and it's little known, but heat is about 60% of the CO2 problem. It's not just power, it's heat and industry, and HERO can cater for both. The announcements that have been made today are revolutionary because they place Australia at the cusp of having hydrogen hubs and hydrogen-intensive communities that allow businesses like us to interact with other businesses, much like we do with the University of Newcastle now and other businesses in the area. This is really important, and I'm really back the Prime Minister and the Minister when they say this is technology-driven. It really is technology-driven. Hydrogen is now. Hydrogen will be the future fuel. It's inexhaustible. It will dramatically drop in price, and it will become the base fuel of the planet. So once again, very, very proud to have you all here. On behalf of myself and my team, thank you.
Thank you. Happy to take some questions. Why don't we start with the announcement first? And
obviously, what you've seen here today is on a smaller scale.
Sure.
Is there a time frame that you would like to see hydrogen being used, as you said, to power heavy industry?
Of course. And this is already occurring. When I was up in the Pilbara last week, they're already looking to have hydrogen powering their trucks as little as the next half of this year. So this is a reality. This is already occurring. It's already occurring in many places. But what's exciting about the technology here is, as Andrew was saying, you need heat to make things. You need heat to drive turbines because it needs to create the steam that drive the turbines. I mean, the technology that is being developed here means you can plug this in to what is currently a coal-fired power station and drive the same turbines. So just think about the implications of that. But you've got to get it to scale. And the way you get things to scale is you create these communities. The Central Coast Hunter could become, like you have a Silicon Valley, you've got a hydrogen valley in bringing together the expertise, the entrepreneurialism, the resource and the use, significantly the use of the heavy industry. That's why it's so exciting for regions in Australia, because it sees their regions not just propelled, but transformed along the way. And so, yeah, we want to see it happening as soon as possible. The whole world does, because it's a huge part of the solve. It's a huge part of the answer to the question we're all trying to ensure that we can address. That's what I'll be joining President Biden and the many other world leaders over the next couple of days. And where I'm seeking to focus that conversation, it's now about the how. There's been enough conversations about the when. It's about the how now. And Andrew and his team here, they're delivering on the how. And what we're delivering on is on the how, and that's the technology and scaling it up. The challenge is to scale it up, because when you scale it up and you get the demand for that, then you can drive down the price. The more you drive down the price, that means in countries not far from here, whether it's in Indonesia or Malaysia or India or indeed China, you want to deal with global emissions, then you need technology that's commercial and that developing nations around the world will adopt, which means that they can get the same jobs, which is a fair ask on their part. They want the technology that enables them to create jobs in their economies, and we want them to have that too. And the way you achieve that is by proving it, making it right, and that's what these hubs achieve.
With this new technology now here on the Central Coast, one of the issues still pending is the PEP 11 license. I think the Central Coast community is really anxiously awaiting a decision. Can you have a bit of light on when that will be and how you feel about
Well,
that?
I think I've made it pretty clear what my government's view is about that. I mean, that will go through processes, but I've made it absolutely crystal clear that that's not something I support, and you can expect my view on that to be rock solid.
And is there enough room now for Central Coast University? You talked about research and development is very important. There's been a lot of growing interest in the Central Coast University. Have you heard about University of Newcastle? But it's Newcastle, we are not Newcastle.
Well, look, I'm going to ask Lucy to speak about that, because the truth is Newcastle University is a regional university that is reaching right across this region, and not just in the areas we're talking about here in this ecosystem, but also, I know, in the health space as well. Lucy has been doing amazing work here for years to create health hubs here and health science hubs in the work that she's been doing with the universities. But Lucy, you might want to comment on that.
Thanks, PM. The University of Newcastle is strongly committed to the Central Coast region and has been for a number of years, but it's also strongly committed to the importance of the Central Coast having its own voice, and that's why our Central Coast Medical School is going to be called exactly that, Central Coast Medical School, with the first intake of students coming in July of this year, a world-class medical institution and medical research institution right here in Gosford, available for students on the Central Coast, students around Australia, students to be able to come and study and gain access to the best possible education in terms of healthcare and the best possible opportunities for their future. We're not stopping there. The Prime Minister knows this, that we do have a dream to see the university campus expand, a dream to see young people who choose to study an education degree of their choice have the opportunity to do so right here where they live, not to have to go to Sydney or Newcastle or London or New York or anywhere else that they may wish to, that they may need to go, but to at least have the choice to be able to study where they live. For too long, people here on the Central Coast have not had that choice, but that is changing. It's changing not just in education, can I say, it's also changing in terms of job opportunities, and we are seeing that. A great example of that with Star Scientific here, a great example of an investment in hydrogen, in the technology around hydrogen, in the hydrogen economy, and this is great news for the Central Coast and Hunter region.
Obviously, the hubs that you mentioned that are going to be developed, a competitive process on that. Do you think the Hunter or the Hunter Central Coast region is a front runner in that? You've heard the links with the university here. Obviously, we have the CSIRO in Newcastle and the port. Are we a front runner?
Well, I think you're a very, very strong contender. I mean, I don't want to intervene in the proper process that is going through. But what's exciting about, I think, the places that are obvious candidates, I mean, the reason we're expanding is I think there's more than one. There's a lot more. Whether it's Bell Bay down in Tasmania, or as it's the Pilbara, as I've said, or up around Gladstone, or here in the Hunter, or there are many other parts of the country which are well suited to that. And what Angus has done, and bringing this forward, and I'll ask him to comment on this, is that he's enabling more of these hydrogen valleys, these carbon capture, use and storage valleys to be all around the country. But Angus.
Thanks, PM. We announced some months ago the first hydrogen hub and a commitment of $70 million to our first hydrogen hub. What struck us very quickly is how much potential there is in Australia to build these hubs on the back of a hydrogen industry that already exists. I mean, the Hunter Valley already uses hydrogen to produce fertiliser, for instance, to help put food on the plate of Australians every day. So the potential there is enormous, and that's why we've expanded from a single hub out to 5 hubs, but in addition to that, the carbon capture and storage hubs, where indeed the Hunter Valley and this region is playing a very significant role already in developing technologies for carbon capture, use and storage, which are world-leading, just like the technologies we've seen here today. So in terms of the process, the round of it will be a competitive grant process. It'll open in the coming months, and we're looking to make announcements in the first part of next year.
What's part of that process? What do they need to do to prove that?
Well, we very much want to see great projects brought forward, and great projects involve collections of organisations working together, the hydrogen producers, the hydrogen users, the energy generators, all of those different parts of a hub, as well as potential for the right skills to be brought to bear, all of those components that make a successful hub coming forward in the proposals. Ultimately, it's a competitive process, but the fact that we are now going to award 5, not just 1, says to everybody that Australia is a place where we can really lead the world on this, and Australia has technology, skills, and indeed the existing energy hubs which form the foundation of what will be, we think, fantastic hydrogen hubs for Australia and for the world.
Time for 1 or 2 more.
Is there any specific amount designated for the Central Coast from the funding, or is it Australia-wide?
Well, it's Australia-wide, and it goes to those hubs, and Central Coast Hunter, if they're, we encourage them to be involved in this. I think it can be transformational here, and you've clearly got the base to do it from. So I think there's a very exciting opportunity there.
Do you believe that Australia can make hydrogen at a commercial, international level without emitting greenhouse gases?
Yes. Yes, I do. I do. And we have got to do it at the right price. We've got to get hydrogen being able to be produced at $2 a kilo. That's a target. That's actually going to change things dramatically around the world. And I know with Fortescue Future Industries, who I was with last week, where Andrew Forrest and his organisation is working on those challenges, not just here but in other parts of the world. They have a similar target, and in fact even more ambitious than that, which is very much like Andrew. So you've not only just got to be able to master the science and the technology, which is what Andrew and the team here are demonstrating, you've then got to master the price. And that's why those technology targets, those energy technology targets, the hydrogen technology target, are the targets that actually bring about the change. That's what actually deals with the challenges around climate change. That's what actually deals with how that impacts on industries, particularly in regions, and that's why we're so focused on that. That's why we are talking about energy technologies all the time, because we know that is the ticket to the jobs, that is the ticket for the heavy industries that are so important to our regions, that is the ticket for Australia to be able to lead.
Just on another topic,
Sure.
Brittany Higgins has this afternoon tweeted saying she hasn't heard from your office since they initially made contact on the 6th of April. Why hasn't a meeting been set?
Well, look, that's in process. We heard from Brittany last week, and it's an important meeting. I'm looking forward to having it, and we've been obviously following up on that now, and I look forward to having a meeting arranged soon.
Vaccines, I'll move to another
Sure.
subject. Will the government commit to ensuring there's a mRNA facility in Australia? And if so, what's the earliest date that could...
Well, this is exciting technology as well, and I welcome states and territories as well as the Commonwealth also will be moving in this area. mRNA, no one's going to be in a position to be able to manufacture through mRNA to deal with the needs we have this year. That's not the discussion. A year ago, mRNA vaccines were a theory, largely, around the world. But COVID and the vaccine of mRNA production has made that a reality now. And mRNA vaccines will be important for vaccine development into the future. And Australia is going to be part of that. And my government's going to be part of that. State governments are going to be part of that. And so we welcome that. But this is about establishing that manufacturing capability here, not so much specifically to deal with COVID, although there will be, because I think COVID will continue to be with us for some time, and there will be further evolutions of vaccines in that area. So we will move to do that. But more importantly, in terms of vaccine production as a manufacturing capability of Australia, to be able to do what was only theory last year and to bring that into a reality here in Australia. At present, you can only do mRNA vaccines in the United States and certain parts of Europe. So it is a very new area of science when it comes to vaccines. And so whether it's there or the sorts of things we're talking about today, our modern manufacturing strategy is about ensuring that Australia has a lead in those core areas that we think we can be successful in. In the medical area, that is certainly one.
Do you support Victoria's decision to commit $50 million to try and set up a local...
Absolutely. I think it's great. I mean, I think it's great. That's not done in place of the Commonwealth. It is done, and I'm sure as other states will look to establish this capability as well. That's what state governments do. That's part of their job. And certainly the Commonwealth will be seeking to support what we can do in this area as well. I mean, it was the Commonwealth who ensured that CSL was able to produce and be one of the only countries in the world, only about 20 of us, who actually can produce COVID-19 vaccines. We are one of a handful of countries that can do that. So I think as a Commonwealth, as a government, we've already demonstrated our capacity to move. We did that last August for an adenovirus vaccine, and the mRNA is a much more complicated setup, and so we moved on the one that could be done most swiftly, and certainly with mRNA vaccines, that is a competency and a capability that I want Australia to have.
A Central Coast woman passed away on potential blood clot. What would be the security, safety of this vaccine? Is that something that you put some focus into it as well?
Oh, this is the constant focus of our medical advisors and the TGA and the many other expert groups that advise the Commonwealth Government and, of course, state and territory governments. And so we've been informed by that advice all the way through managing COVID-19. I have to, every time we reflect on these things, Australia proceeded very carefully to go through the approval phases of our vaccines. This was important, whether it was Pfizer or AstraZeneca. There are others who are saying that we should rush. There are others who thought we should just go into emergency-type approvals of our vaccines, and we chose not to do that. We chose to stick with the very careful and tested process of approving vaccines in this country. We didn't cut any corners. We made sure we ticked every box. We made sure we got hold of the evidence and the information that enabled, I believe, some of the best regulators, if not the best regulators in the world, to make their decisions on the vaccines that are being used in Australia. Other countries weren't able to do that. Other countries, like we see in the United States, with 1,000 people dying every day, every single day. In Australia, our relative success in ensuring that we suppressed the virus meant we could get the process right, and we followed that advice, and so therefore the vaccines that are available here in Australia, particularly those being administered to over 50s for AstraZeneca, and the most important population are those over 70s currently, and I'm pleased to see that the number of vaccinations each day are staying well above north of 60,000 a day, and the general practitioners who are administering those doses and talking to their patients and giving them that confidence. I want to continue to encourage, particularly those aged over 70 at the moment, make that appointment, go and see your GP and in the GP practices that are administering the vaccine, and ensure you do that, because if there's a COVID outbreak in Australia, you're in one of those vulnerable groups and you're at great risk from COVID. We saw that with the second wave in Victoria. Over 600 Victorians died who were in those vulnerable groups when the second wave went through. And I do not want to see that here in Australia again. And the protection against that is the vaccine, the AstraZeneca vaccine, which is safe and effective for those over 50. That is the clear medical advice that we have received, and particularly for those aged over 70. It is important for your public health, for your health, that you take those vaccines. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you all very much for your time today. And thank you, Andrew. Great pleasure.